Hi, my name is Deb Weiss-Gelmi, and this is a Level 1 yoga class with some direction to be suitable for Level 2 as well. You'll need a chair, which could be a folding chair or a dining room chair is fine, and some blocks. And if you don't have blocks, something like a footstool or a couple of sturdy books can be helpful as well. So we'll start in Tadasana. Join your feet together in the middle of your mat, or if your feet are hip distance, you want them to be parallel to each other. Press through the inner heel big toe mound. And press the thighs back slightly and the middle buttock forward slightly, and then lift the side ribs up, and then take the shoulders away from the ears. Point the fingers toward the floor. Soften the face. And then take your arms out in front of you for Urdhva. The triceps roll toward each other in this pose. So the tricep, if your arm is out to the side, the tricep is the part that's on the bottom if your palm is facing the screen. So the triceps, as you're going up, those triceps are coming toward each other as you go up. So lift and lengthen. And this time for Urdhva, let's take everything up, the shoulders and everything. The shoulders, the ribs, reaching up, reaching up, reaching up. And then once you get those ribs lifted as high as you can, then keep them lifted and bring the shoulders down. But using the lift of those arms to bring those ribs up, so really lengthening the torso. And then notice if your shoulders keep creeping up, but keep the chest lifted and keep the ribs moving upward, really lengthening the torso. And then bring the arms out in front of you and down. And then our next pose is called Badanguliasana. So we'll clasp the hands together, turn the palms away, draw those upper arms toward each other. And again, we're going to use the arms to lift the rib cage up. So as we take our arms up today, take your shoulders up with you, lift everything up from that upper torso, taking those ribs up with the arms, reach, 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 reach. And then once you get those ribs and torso lengthened as much as possible, then bring the ears away. So soften the face, keeping that torso lengthening away from the pelvis, the ribs lengthening away from the pelvis. And then we'll switch the clasp of your hands. So your front thumb and fingers go behind the other thumbs and fingers. And then turn them. Draw those arms toward each other. And then take the arms up. Using that lift of the arms to take you can take the shoulders up with you, but to lift those ribs up off the pelvis. Lift the ribs up off the pelvis. And then once you get lifted and lengthened as much as possible, then take the shoulders away. Badanguliasana, lengthening, lifting those ribs up off the pelvis. And then release the hands, palms face each other, and arms down. So our next pose, Adho Mukha Svanasana, is downward facing dog. Now, if you need your hands to be on the chair, you can do that. Otherwise, we'll take our hands right to the floor. Spread the palms wide. Your hands are shoulder distance apart. And then we press into the pointer finger mound and the thumb mound. So you're moving from the little finger side to the pointer finger mound and thumb mound side. And then curl the toes under, press through the pointer finger mound, lift up through the inner shoulder, and from the inner shoulder up toward the hips, press the thighs back. Release the inner heels toward the floor. Keep pressing the thighs back. And so this time we're lengthening the torso again, but focusing on taking the pelvis off the ribs this time. So imagine that someone is gently pulling your hips away from the hands. So now your pelvis is lengthening up and off the ribs, back away from the hands. So keeping that weight in the pointer finger mound in front, flowing through the inner shoulder, lifting up towards the pelvis, and then taking that pelvis even farther away from your hands. And press the thighs back and the inner heels down. And then we'll come down and rest and do it one more time. So as you can see, before I start, my hands are not right underneath my shoulders to start, but they're a little bit out in front to get a wider stance of between the hands and the feet. Okay, so again, press through the pointer finger mound, curl the toes under, lift up through the inner shoulder, flow from that inner shoulder through to the hips, hips back, thighs back, and then imagine that extra little lengthening with somebody pulling back gently on that pelvis, away from the ribs, lifting off the ribs, lengthening the torso. Press the thighs back. Soften the head and neck. Lengthening. Lengthening, lengthening the torso. And then come on down. And so now we'll stand for Utthita Trikonasana. And if you have blocks, this is when you can grab your blocks or your footstool. If you don't have either of those, you can also use the chair seat as a high block. Okay, so Utthita Trikonasana, triangle pose. So jump or step your feet wide. Turn your feet to the right. Press through your outer edge of your back foot and the big toe mound in the front. And then before we tip to the side, think of the poses that we've been doing so far. We're lifting that rib cage up off the pelvis. Lifting it up, lifting it up, lifting it up. So as we go down, instead of bringing it all together and slouching down, we want to lift, 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 lift up off the pelvis. And then tip to the right side. Taking your torso toward the wall behind you. You can put your hand down onto your shin. Top hand on the hip for a moment to roll that chest open. Roll the chest open as you're taking the ribs away from the pelvis, and then reach that top arm up. Utthita Trikonasana, triangle pose. If there's any tension in your neck, just look your head forward or turn your head forward, and then really still taking those ribs away from that pelvis. And then to come up, press through the outer edge of the back foot, toes forward, and to the other side. So press through the outer edge of that back foot, lift the ribs up off the pelvis, big toe mound in the front, and as you lengthen down over that left leg. Hand on the shin is fine, top hand on the hip for a moment, roll the chest open, shoulders away from the ears, and then reach that top arm up. Lengthening the ribs away from the pelvis. So using the legs to move the pelvis the other way, and then lifting those ribs up off the pelvis. Soften the face. And then to come out, press through the outer edge of the back foot to bring yourself up. Toes forward, fingertips together, and jump or step back to Tadasana. So our next pose, Virabhadrasana 2 to Parshvakonasana. So we're going to do 2 together, but you'll want to have a block on each side if you have those. So jump or step your feet wide. Make sure those legs are far enough apart. Turn your feet to the right. Press through the outer edge of the left foot. Soften the inner thigh so the knee is right over the heel. Spread the arms wide. Spread across the chest. So Virabhadrasana 2. We'll look over the right fingertips. And then we'll take your hand down to the block or the floor for Parshvakonasana. Top hand on the hip. Roll the chest open. Lifting and lengthening. So we reach the arm straight up. Roll that shoulder, turn that shoulder, palm facing overhead. And then as you reach that arm up, take those side ribs with you again, as we've been doing with the poses. Taking the side ribs off the pelvis, lengthening away from the outer edge of that back foot. And then you can look up to the inner arm, or you can look forward if there's any tension. But really spreading, taking those ribs with that top arm. And then to come out, press through the outer edge of the back foot to come up to Virabhadrasana 2. And then that thigh toward the back wall to straighten the leg, toes forward, and you can rest your hands on your hips for a moment. You can move your block to the other side if you need to. So really work on lengthening our torso. So we'll turn our feet to the left, press through the outer edge of the left foot, the outer edge of the right foot, soften through the inner thigh of the left leg. Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. Spread those arms, and then take your left hand down to the block right next to the leg. Top hand on the hip for a moment and roll the chest open. So Parshvakonasana is extended side angle. So press through the outer edge of that back foot, reach your arm up to the ceiling, turn the arm, palm facing overhead. And as you take this arm up and over, really take that side rib cage with you. So lifting, lengthening, take that side rib, the ribs up and off the pelvis, lengthening away as you look up to that inner arm. Pressing through the outer edge of the back foot and lengthening up that side body. Extended side angle. And then to come out, press through the outer edge of the back foot to Virabhadrasana 2. And then to straighten this leg, move that thigh from the inside out to straighten the leg. Toes forward, fingertips together, and jump or step back to Tadasana. Mountain pose. Our next pose is Parshvottanasana. So the best way for you to see me is to turn your mat so it's perpendicular to the way that it was, and then have your chair in between the mat and your screen. And then we'll put the chair at the end. Step your right foot forward and your left foot back. So the front heel lines with the back arch. So just take a look. If there was an invisible line between your front heel and your back arch. And then the top thigh of that front leg is rolling from the inside out. And then press through the outer edge of that back foot and the big toe mound in the front. And then lengthen the sternum off that pelvis, just as we've been doing. So just like in downward dog where the pelvis is pulling back, the ribs pulling forward as we've done in some of the other poses. So lengthening. Lengthening, lengthening. And then the left ribs are coming around in the back, so the navel and chest are going toward that straight leg. And then the back of your neck can just lengthen. Now this is where you could take your hands down the chair if you wanted to go a little bit lower. Your hands could even go to the floor if you wanted, if you were there. So that navel and chest turning toward that front leg. Shoulders away from the ears. And then we'll lift up, press through the outer edge of the back foot, and bring our feet together back to Tadasana. For the second side of Parshvottanasana, take your left foot forward and your right foot back. This is pyramid pose. So the front heel lines up with the back arch. So press through the outer edge of that back foot, the big toe mound in the front. That front thigh rolls from the inside out. And then just as with our other poses, take the pelvis away from the ribs and the ribs away from the pelvis, shoulders away from the ears. And now the right ribs are coming around, so the navel and chest turn toward that left leg in the front. Lengthening. And again, this is where you could decide if you wanted to be with your hands on the floor, or maybe some blocks, or the legs at different heights, or the chair seat. It could even be up here, depending on your flexibility. And then to come out, press through the outer edge of the back foot, bring yourself up, and then step your feet together. Okay, so this next pose is called Pavrita Trikonasana, which is revolved triangle pose. So I'll just show you a little bit before we start. So triangle pose, if you were to look at my triangle foot pose from the back, it would look like this, tipping to the side. But we're going to do revolved triangle pose, so it turns the torso, so it's going in the opposite direction from regular triangle pose. So it's Pavrita Trikonasana, revolved triangle pose. Okay? But we're going to start out, when we start in a second, with your hand on the chair, just for a little bit of ease for the first one, and then we'll go on for the second one. So then we can come back up this way. So we'll do this together. I think the best way to start is to do it as we've just done it. Okay, so you're looking at the camera. You won't be able to see my pose as much, but you just saw it from the side so you'll know what's going on. Step your front leg forward, your left foot back. Make sure the front heel lines up with the back arch. Take a look. Press through the outer edge of that back foot. The back thigh goes from the inside out. Press through the big toe mound in the front. That front thigh goes from the inside out. And then lengthen up the left arm, really lengthening that side body. Taking those ribs up with your arm as you lift your ribs up off your pelvis, and then extend forward your navel and chest going toward that front leg. Extend, 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 extend. And then you can put your hand down to the chair seat. If that's too low, you can turn the chair around and put your hand on the back. And then rotate the chest toward your right. And now we're using those back ribs and back shoulder blades to twist. And then if you get the twist so the top shoulder is stacked over the lower shoulder, then you can reach your arm up toward the ceiling. Pavrita Trikonasana, revolved triangle pose. And then we'll face back toward the chair. Put your hands onto your hips. Press through the outer edge of the back foot to come up. And then bring our feet back together. And we'll do the second side. So for a moment in Tadasana, just feel the difference of the two sides of the body. They've worked quite differently. And then step your left foot forward, your right foot back. Align the front heel to back arch. Press through the outer edge of the back foot. The back thigh goes from the inside out. The front thigh goes from the inside out. And then turn that navel and chest toward that front leg. And reach that right arm up, 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 up. Taking the ribs up with that side. Lengthening, lengthening, lengthening up off the pelvis as you extend forward over that front leg. Extend, extend, extend. And then you can put your hand down onto the chair. Top hand, the other hand on the hip, and roll the chest open. Roll the chest open. So those back ribs are coming around. The back right ribs coming down and through, the top ribs rolling toward the back. And then if that top shoulder is upright, then you can take that top arm up. Opening up, Pavrita Trikonasana, revolved triangle. And then the last part could even be possibly looking up. And then turn your torso toward the chair. Press through the outer edge of the back foot to come up. And then join your feet together. Okay, the second time we do this, let's do it with the mat turned the other way. Just so you can get a different view. You can keep your mat turned the same way if you wish. This time through, I'll show you with the chair and the block so you can decide which one you would like to do. So I set the chair up at the end here so I can show you briefly what that does, and then we'll have the block here as well. Okay? So first I step my right foot forward and the left foot back. So my right leg is the one that's closest to you, and it's the front leg. So align the front heel to back arch. Put your hands on your hips. Extend the right arm up to the ceiling. Lift, 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 taking that whole side rib cage up with that arm. And then extending forward, taking the navel and the chest over that front leg. And this is where you could either put your hand on the chair or you could put your hand on the block. And so you can start out with the block on the big toe side of the foot and then use that block to rotate the chest. So those back ribs are coming around, the top ribs are going up toward the ceiling. Take that outer hip away from the armpit and open. So this is where you could, if the top shoulder is over the bottom shoulder, you could open that top arm up, spreading across the collarbones. And then possibly looking up to those fingertips. Lengthening that torso. And then facing down toward the leg. Press through the outer edge of the back foot to come up. And then bring your feet together. And I'll move the chair to the other side for visual, but you can keep your chair where it is. Okay, so this time the left foot is forward, the right foot back. Align the front heel to back arch. Extend the right arm up toward the ceiling. Lifting, lifting, lifting. Press through the big toe mound in the front. Take those side ribs up with that arm. Extend over the front leg. Over, over, over. Navel and chest going toward that front leg. And this is where you could put the hand on the chair, or you could take your hand down to the block on the floor, and then top hand on the hip, roll the chest open. Revolve triangle pose. So take that outer hip away from the armpit, lengthening, open the chest, extend that arm up, spread across the chest, open the arms. Pavrita Trikonasana. Shoulders away from the ears. You can look up to your hand if you wish. And then to come out, face the floor. Press through the outer edge of the back foot to come on up. And then join the feet together. Our next pose is Ardha Chandrasana. So we'll set up our chair with the back of the chair facing your screen and the front of the chair seat facing the wall. And you can scoot it right up against the wall. And then we'll start with the chair on our right and point the right foot toward the chair and the right forearm on the chair. We'll do this pose together. And then the left hand on the back, roll the chest open. And as this standing leg straightens, turn the thigh from the inside out, or the front thigh toward the wall, and then open up the chest. So in this pose, our top hip is open and chest is open, and turning the chest up toward the ceiling and lengthening the torso, extending through the inner heel, big toe mound, lengthening the crown of the head away. Ardha Chandrasana is half moon pose. And then we'll come on up and to the other side. Now the left foot is facing the chair seat. The left forearm goes down to the chair seat and the right hand on the back. And then lifting that back leg, turning that top thigh from the inside out of that standing leg, lengthening away. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, lengthening away from the crown of the head and lengthening away across the pelvis or through the pelvis, lengthening that torso as we've been doing, and turn the chest up toward the ceiling. And then we'll come on down. So our next pose is Pavrita Ardha Chandrasana. Pavrita means revolved or twisted, and Ardha Chandrasana is half moon, so revolved half moon. So I'll show you first, and then we'll do it together. So I start out in Ardha Chandrasana as we just did, and then I face my torso toward the chair seat, and then my navel and my chest face the floor or the chair seat, and the front thigh of the back leg faces the floor. And you could stay here if you wanted to, or you could take your arm down, your forearm down to the chair seat and use the wall to open up for revolved Ardha Chandrasana. So Pavrita Ardha Chandrasana. Okay, and then to come out, we'll face the floor and then come back up. So we'll do it together. So right foot forward, right forearm down, left hand on the back of the chair, lift up for Ardha Chandrasana. Lengthen the pelvis away from the crown of the head. Press the thigh back away. And then to start to revolve, we'll turn the chest toward the floor, the chest and the navel and the top of that back thigh toward the floor. And you can stay here, or you can keep revolving toward the back. Put your forearm down on the chair seat and open up to the back wall. Pavrita Ardha Chandrasana, revolved half moon. And then you can face the chair and we'll come back up and go to the other side. So now the left foot is facing the chair to go into Ardha Chandrasana. Lengthen, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, away from the crown of the head. And then we'll start to revolve. So we face the navel and the chest and the top of thigh of that back leg toward the floor. And you can stay here. Or if you want to go to the next step, you can take that forearm down to the floor and turn toward the back wall. Opening the chest toward that back wall, using those back ribs to roll, turn the torso away. And then to come out, torso toward the floor, and then stand up. So our final twist will be a seated twist in the chair. So turn your chair so the back of the chair is facing your screen, and sit down, back up to the back of the chair. Lift and lengthen, just as we've been doing, lifting and lengthening to make space for twists. So lengthen, and then on your exhalation, turn toward the back of the chair. Shoulders away from the ears, lift the sternum up. So the twists that we've been doing have been pretty intense, balancing and getting everything in place. So the chair is lovely because we just get to rest a little bit more as we twist. Drawing that space back behind the navel, spreading it wide. And then using and feeling those back ribs coming around. Shoulders away from the ears. Soften the face. And then slowly unwind. Walk your knees around to the other side. Slide yourself to the back. Lift and lengthen up through the crown of the head. And on your exhalation, turn toward the back of the chair. Bringing those back ribs around. Flowing and supporting, using those back ribs to lift the front chest and spread the chest. Shoulders away from the ears. Shoulders not coming forward to twist, but allowing the shoulders to stay back, but using the ribs and the chest to twist. And then soften the face. The neck just being a natural extension of the torso turning. No strain in the neck. And then slowly unwind. And then we'll move the chair out of the way. So this is where, if you are a level 2 student and you practice Sirsasana, headstand, you would pause the video, do your headstand, and then come back and pick up right here. Our next pose is Chatushpadasana. So you might want to block if you want it to be a more restful pose. So I'll show you both, but I'll show you first. So I lie down on my back, I walk my heels into my buttocks. I start to flow my shoulders toward my hands before I lift up. I lift up, and then I really take that shoulder under, and lift up. So I'm really trying to get to the tops of those shoulders. And if you want a more restful pose, you can have this block at different heights. Sometimes you can go up to your toes to get it under there. And then you can rest your tailbone on either the high or the medium or the low. But if you want more muscular work at this time, you're using your buttocks to lift, your outer thighs up toward the ceiling, your inner thighs relaxing. Okay, so your turn. So lie on your back. Walk your feet into your buttocks. Start to flow those shoulders, just knowing that they're really going to flow in a moment. And then lift the tailbone up, flow the shoulder toward the hand, and then lift that buttocks up. And if at any time you want to rest with a block under you, you can do that. Otherwise, lift your buttocks up, outer thighs going up toward the ceiling, and soften the inner thighs. Now we'll do this twice, so if you're resting on a block, you might just stay there longer. Otherwise, we'll do it twice. So you're lifting up, using the buttocks muscles. If you're right there and you know this pose, you can grab your ankles for Chatushpadasana with the hands on the ankles, lifting up, thumb on the same side as your hands, being on tops of those shoulders, lifting up with the buttocks lifting. And if your hands aren't connected, that's okay too, lifting up. And then we'll come on down for a rest and we'll go up one more time. So if you have the block under you, with a more supported version, you can just last a little longer up there, using muscles differently. So for our next one, or our second one, walk your feet in to your buttocks. Lift the buttocks up, roll the shoulders under, roll the other shoulder under, and lift that buttocks up. Lift the muscles of the buttocks up, the outer The outer thighs rolling up, but soften the abdomen and soften the inner thighs and soften the face. So it's finding that balance between the muscles that really, really work in this pose versus the muscles that completely relax. The abdomen, the face, the throat, the neck, the inner thighs. And then the buttocks really work. And the outer thighs rolling up. And the upper back really working. And the shoulders pressing down. And then come on down, allowing the tailbone to come down last. And then this is where level 2 students, if you practice Sarvangasana, you would do that now and come back for our Viparita Karani. So for this pose, Viparita Karani, you can have blocks or you can use blankets if you're used to that. If you use blankets, I'll just remind you, if you use blankets and you have this type of blanket, you would go from this to this. You would just use the narrow blankets with at least three stacked up. You can do 3 to 5 of those. But for simplicity of the video, I'll show you with the blocks. So I'll show you quickly and then you can do your own. If you've watched the video a bunch of times, then obviously you can just go up by yourself. So I scoop myself right into the wall and then roll back. So I have my legs up the wall and my buttocks is right at the wall. Okay, so this is fine if you want to just stay here, flow the shoulders toward the fingers. If you want a little height, you can lift yourself up and put a block underneath your buttocks and then extend up, flow the fingers away. If you want a little more height, you can put a little more height under there. Walk the shoulders in a little bit more. And this ideally would be a full wall, so my heels are on the floor. And then rolling the shoulders under, flowing those shoulders toward the fingertips. Okay? So to come out, I lift up, take the blocks out, and then I'll roll down. So now it's your turn. So you'll start out scooting yourself right into the wall. So scooting yourself right into the wall. If you want the blocks, have them nearby. And then take your shoulder down, roll on up. So you want to get right up to that wall. Again, you can stay here, or you can put your feet on the floor and lift your buttocks up and place a block under there. Or you could go up one more. So lifting up, one more block. And so Viparita Karani means means inverted lake pose. So your abdomen is the lake that becomes still. So flow the shoulders toward the wall, toward your hands, toward the wall. And then start to let go. This is a great pose to do at night before bedtime. Soften the abdomen, soften the face, soften the neck and throat. But your legs are still active in this pose. Ideally, again, I would have my heels against the wall. But I thought a side view would be a little bit better. You can close your eyes if you haven't yet. And this is preparing us or getting us into a state of Shavasana before we get to Shavasana, which is the next pose where we lie flat on our back. So this pose is calming on the nervous system, helping us begin to get into that relaxed state of letting go. we still have a tinge of effort in our legs. Extend through that inner thigh to the inner knee to the inner heels. Flow and extend the inner heel and big toe mound away, bringing that little toe side back to the outer hips. So trying to find that differentiation between the working of the legs and the relaxation of the abdomen and the face and the throat and the neck. And then to come out, bend your legs, put your feet on the wall. And then lift yourself up if you have height under you to take that height out. And then you'll roll to your side. And remember you are inverted, so just rest your head for a moment. You don't want to lift your head up. We've already begun relaxing our nervous system, calming our nervous system. And then from here you'll make your way to Shavasana. So trying to do that in the least disturbing way, or disturbing yourself as little as possible, I should say. You can put a little blanket under your head, not too much height, just a little bit. And then when you lie down, start with your legs bent for a moment. Lift up your buttocks, take your buttocks away from your low back, and then set your low back down, or your buttocks down. And then one at a time, take your legs out where they're fairly close together, and then allow them to just splay to the side. And then flow your shoulder toward your hands. Soften your face, soften your throat. Close your eyes, and then just let go. So from the top of your head down to your feet, begin to let go of the muscles. Soften the muscles around your eyes, around your cheeks. Soften your jaw. Unhinge your lower jaw from your upper jaw, allowing for a little bit of space between the teeth. Keeping the lips slightly closed. Soften the neck and the throat. Soften the shoulders to all the way down through your half-open hands. Soften your chest and your upper back, and your abdomen and your low back. And then flow from your hips all the way down to your feet. Softening your inner thigh to your inner knee, to your calf muscle, and your ankles splaying to the side. From the top of your head, relax completely all the way down to your toes. Imagine on your next exhalation, you can just peacefully melt right into the floor. begin to come out of Shavasana. Bend your arms, put your hands onto your front body, wherever it's most comfortable, your abdomen, your ribs, your chest. Allow those elbows to remain on the floor. And then bend your left leg, put your foot on the floor. Draw your right arm up and along the floor, over your head. And then to turn your right side, you're just going to push off the left leg, roll to your right side, and then join the feet or the knees together for comfort, allowing your head to just relax on your arm. And then you'll push yourself up into a seated position. And there's a tradition in yoga where we say namaste, which means the light in me honors the light in you, or the best in me greets the best in you. So we join our hands together in the middle of our chest and say namaste. Thank you so much for joining us.